right? And how they like, my mother-in-law prefers to be called Tejana because she has lived in Texas, and for generations we've been in Texas. So she will not call herself Hispanic, Mexican. She will call herself Tejana. So it just depends on who you're speaking with. Absolutely.
And Ms. Linda, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, and also I think that when we speak about Latinos or Latinas, they're actually referring to land, which because we call it Latin America. And Latin America is part of the Americas, and also the culture. Versus Hispanic, we're talking about a language. So there's a two difference there. Latin American may include, or Americans may include people, of course, from if they want to identify themselves from United States, Mexico, South America, Caribbean. And so it just depends, like Liz said, depends on how they want to identify themselves. Or they prefer, even though that they're Hispanic or Spanish speaking individuals, not to refer themselves as Latinos or Latinas, but rather their specific identity for themselves. I'm a Chicana, or I'm a Tejana, or I'm Heinz 57 myself. So anyway, but that's just, you know, my surname is very anglicized and genetically too, but I was raised in a predominantly Hispanic community and Spanish speaking environment. So I identify myself in that community.
So basically, is it fair when we have clients that come to us, we just need to ask them, how do you prefer for us to address you? Okay.
And you know, Liz and Linda, you probably see this issue too, but a lot of the services we provide, we have questionnaires we have to fill out with demographics, and they follow the census, which currently the census says, are you Hispanic or non-Hispanic? And then the next question is your race. And so a lot of my clients who are Hispanic, and maybe many from Mexico, they are often counted as Hispanic white, and because that's how the census wants them to identify themselves. So that's pretty jarring for some people. Sometimes we have a discussion about it. Sometimes they prefer to be labeled as indigenous, depending on what their cultural and ethnic heritage is. But yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's a complicated topic.
It really is.
To be the easy question too.
And so my next question is, does this include people born in the United States as well as migrants? But y'all kind of touched on that. So basically it appears to, when we have our clients come in, it's just better to ask, how do you prefer for us to, you know, refer you to? I think that would be a better way, so we won't offend anybody.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And what they're more comfortable with, because, you know, we definitely want to make our clients comfortable in regards to the population that we deal with. So, well, for purposes of our discussion, I guess I'm going to just stick with maybe the Latinx, just for consistency. So do Latinx people report or experience sexual assault at different rates from other demographics? Like, what are y'all seeing in your in the work that y'all are doing? And I'll start with Annalie first, and then we'll go to Miss Liz and then Miss Linda.
I'm probably the worst person to answer this question. I'm a statistician and I'm not a social worker. So because I'm an immigration attorney, all the clients I see are non-citizens. And in my area in Waco, that means that most are Hispanic. So all my clients are primarily Mexican citizens that seek our services. So I couldn't really tell you what the statistics are for the community as a whole. Liz and Linda might be better situated to answer that question.
So because I primarily work with the LASSA grant, right? So legal aid for survivors of sexual assault. I can say that probably the biggest percent of my clients are of the Hispanic, Latina, you know, community. Probably there's a good chunk of that demographic for sure. Yeah.
So are you seeing, and this is for both of y'all real quick, and Miss Linda, I'm definitely going to come to you. So are y'all seeing that they're equal in regards to the rates, the Hispanic and the Latina community, the Latinx community? Are they kind of equal? Or is it a little bit more with Hispanic versus the Latinx, or vice versa?
I think, you know what, Linda, I'll let you take, because Linda works with
Okay.
immigration similar to Anna Lee, but because I'll get some clients that I'm working with that are passed to me over due to, you know, they're applying for U visa, but Linda has taken over those cases. So Linda, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Well, I did a little research because that's what I do. I like to research.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was looking at the Texas DPS stats, and actually one of the stats was a little older than the other. I looked at 2011 versus 2018, which is the latest one that I could find. But the statistics indicated that in 2011, 41% of Hispanics were, they identified them as Hispanics, not Latinx, but the demographic. So 41% of Hispanics reported sexual assault versus in 2018, 43%. That means that the non-Hispanic, you know, is the other percentages, but that's going to be a mix of all types of demographic. So I think that the stats are indicating there that we have a high percentage of survivors of sexual assault or sexual violence or sexual abuse. And so that doesn't mean that the identification is Latinx or Latino, Latina. It just, in general, what the stats show with DPS is that they group them all as Hispanics.
Yeah. Okay. So then, yeah. So basically, it's kind of hard to kind of differentiate because it's Hispanic and that's it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm using the terms interchangeably. Sorry.
Right. No.
Yeah, I'm like Anna Lee. I'm going to use the terms interchangeably as well. And, you know, my time in Houston, when I worked with a lot of undocumented and people seeking U visas, and through the other organization that I worked with, a lot of the women and men that I worked with and young girls that I worked with were from Central America, South America. So they weren't all, you know, Hispanic or I don't, you know, I just use the terms interchangeably. Absolutely.
So then for the purpose of this discussion, then let's do that, because, you know, I don't want to confuse. So we're basically talking about like immigration, basically sexual assault within in immigration. So we can basically keep it to where we don't have to differentiate, because like Ms. Linda said, when the study was done, they didn't differentiate, but we want to make sure we are including Central America, you know, Mexico and South America and things like that. So because this goes across the board for those that are seeking help. So just for purposes of the discussion and to keep it, you know, cohesive. So what are the reasons? No, I'm sorry. So what are the myths and misconception about the abuse within the community? So like, what are some of the myths? Like, I know for me, and I actually had some clients today that I was talking to, they feel like if they're being sexually abused by their spouse, they're told, oh, you're supposed to do it because you're my wife, you know. But what are some, and I know that is a myth, like that is definitely a myth. And that is a control that like the men, it's like, you know, they're holding their immigration status against them. It's like, you know, you have to do this because you're my wife and I married you, you know, for this purpose. So what are the myths and misconceptions are y'all seeing when the community comes to y'all for seeking legal advice or even help or social services help? And anyone can take this question.
One of the things I see often is, well, again, I'm speaking to the Hispanic community that are so non-citizens. And one thing I often see is that there's a misunderstanding about how the legal system here works. And so, of course, there is for a survivor, so that that threat that an abuser might make, that if you contact police, ICE is going to come pick you up or immigration is going to get you, that works for a lot of people because they don't have access to information about the legal system, and that there's help for people regardless of their immigration status if they're victims. So that's often what I see happen over and over again. Depending on where the victim comes from, I have had situations with very young marriages that in the United States might not be considered legal at the age that they were married. And so sometimes with very young female survivors of domestic violence, because where the community they came from, it was socially acceptable for them to be married off at a young age.
I agree with you, Annalie. I see that quite often, that threats or that power and control issue that many of the opponents use against their significant other or spouse or whatever relationship they're in, is use threats of immigration, that you'll be deported, that ICE will pick you up. They're going to believe me because I am a US citizen or I have papers, but you don't. And so there's that, it's just misinformation. And since oftentimes our survivors and victims do not know, they don't know, then of course they tend to believe it. And so until they reach out for help, they just don't know that there is help out for them. Until we get them and they call us, and then we find out, well, they had not called before or multiple times before because of those reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, you just touched on that, Ms. Linda. So what are some of the reasons why they're not seeking help? Is it because of the threats, or is it like additional? Is it additional? Because is it just, go ahead.
So recently I had language barrier, number one, right? So I recently, just a couple of days ago, spoke to a survivor, intimate partner sexual assault. And she was reporting to the police. She wanted to, actually, she'd already done the report, and she was calling to follow up with the police report, with the investigation, what's happening. They hung up on her. I'm sorry, we don't speak Spanish. Click. So she couldn't do the follow through. So I gathered her case number so I can follow up and make sure he's still in jail. But that alone, the language barrier and the person on the other line, the police officer, refusing to even make an attempt to try. She was so hurt by that disconnect, literally disconnected by the police officer. So the language barrier is one of the challenges, for sure.
And I think that other challenges, it's multiple challenges. We're talking about cultural factors, how much acculturation the person is, religious factors, psychological reactions of shame or of fear, immigration status, of course, gender roles in the family or within the union of the couple or wherever they are, and also the traditions of the family and the community, as whether they should report, not report, and how it's going to impact everyone. Because most of the time we see that they always, it's not just about me. That's how we see it. It's about me and my children, me and my family, me and my community. And they have to include all those people and how they're going to react and how much support they're going to receive, either by the community, the family, the church members, all those factors that are non-formal versus the ones that Liz was talking about, the formal seeking out help through the police department or legal aid or trying to get a protective order, which are a little bit more formal. But if they don't know the process, they don't have the information, they don't know how to proceed in reaching out for that help in a formal way.
Absolutely. And so that person that I used as an example, she was not the person who made the police report initially. It was a friend who said what he did to you was wrong. So she wasn't even the one who made that initial police report to report, by the way, my husband sexually assaulted me. She actually went for a SANE exam and everything. And that was because her friend encouraged her. So Linda's absolutely right. What is the whole family going to think? What's the community going to think? So this person goes and follows through and then follows up to see if anything's being done, only to get disconnected. So those are the reasons why, absolutely, the community, the culture, where you come from, but then this person tries to reach out and do something, and only to be, ignored, is frustrating.
So since the language barriers, I'm sorry, go ahead, Annalie.
Oh, you saw me take my mute off.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, and I think as in many cultural and ethnic backgrounds, that economic reasons also play in to barriers to reporting. And one particular issue I see with a lot of my clients is the fear of reporting their undocumented partner, for fear that person will be deported, and then their financial support is no longer available to the family. So that is a real viable barrier to a lot of people reporting.
And that's why we have wonderful social workers that can assist with the social services side in regards to finding assistance with housing and things like that. But what I wanted to say, piggyback a little bit on Liz, what you were saying in regards to the language barrier. So you said the friend helped her or convinced her to file a report. Do you think if the friend would have helped, would have called, it would, no?
I don't think she would have, because like Annalie just described, this is her spouse, right? And he supports the kids, he supports her. So right now she's living with the friend with the kids. And so he's already making threats, right? Nobody's going to listen to you. Nobody's going to do anything. So what that I got arrested? And certainly she didn't have that friend support. If she didn't have a friend, I don't think he would have made it, because this isn't the first time he's done this to her. This is a pattern, right? And so it just happens that when she shared with a friend, she's like, no, this isn't right. This just happened. Let's go do it. Let's go do the SANE exam. Otherwise, I don't think she would have reported it, because she has no income right now.
Right. And then she got hung up in her face. So it's kind of one of those things when law enforcement isn't doing their part, then it kind of convinces the survivor that the abuser is telling the truth. Because it's like, I was told to go seek help. I was told to do this, and then they don't do it. They hang up in her face. And then it was like, well, he's right. I was arrested, but I can come after you, because nobody, they feel like nobody is going to help them. So how can we get past those barriers? We said language barriers. And I know this is a loaded question.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm ready to talk about this.
Go ahead, because I was like, how can we get past the language barriers? How can we get past immigration status? Like, how can we go out there and keep fighting the good fight and get past, the barriers, to let them know, hey, there is help. Do not stay in the situation that we're in. And I know we usually say that to the end, but I'm like, I need to get this out now.
Yeah.
What can we do to get past these barriers and help our clients and help those that are listening right now?
I think we as service providers have to make sure we're providing quality assistance in the language that best suits our clients. So all our staff at American Gateways, we're both bilingual in Spanish and English. We have a lot of third language, we call them third language speakers. So someone who doesn't speak English or Spanish. We use Language Line. We contract with them. And so we're able to access quality interpretation services. And that's a huge issue for me, especially in a mid-sized city like Waco, where that's still not the norm. In a lot of service areas, someone will pull, so-and-so, they speak a little bit of Spanish, or maybe the janitor speaks Spanish, so we'll pull them in to interpret. Well, one, that's not good form in any confidential setting with the survivor. You don't pull a random person into the room to interpret. And then two, interpretation is a skill. I'm able, but I do not interpret for other people because I don't have that skill. My mom is a skilled interpreter. She can do that, but I don't do that. So I think more people recognizing, hey, maybe it's not appropriate for me to, maybe I need to say no, and I'm not going to provide interpretation services. And we need to call a Language Line or some other interpretation service. A lot does get lost in translation if you're relying on someone who doesn't know how to do word for word interpretation.
So do you think that because of that, can that turn off the survivor? Like they're seeking help. Can that cause them to shut down and refuse the services and make them feel uncomfortable?
Oh yeah. And then like Liz was saying with law enforcement, I see that all the time in clients trying to call in about the status of their case or provide follow-up information. I have a client I'm working with right now who's a trafficking survivor, and no one identified her as a trafficker for years because no one got an interpreter. She's not a Spanish speaker. No one got an interpreter in her native language. And so it's just so crucial to crime fighting for our enforcement to have access to adequate interpretation services. So we, I think first as social service providers need to make sure that in-house we're doing what we're preaching and have good interpretation contracts with folks. And then we need to be promoting that within law enforcement and saying, hey, it's not appropriate that you have this person in here interpreting, they're not qualified. Make sure you're using the federal funding that all agencies have access to, law enforcement agencies, to get interpretation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with Annalie. I think it starts with the services that are the providers that are providing these services need to have, you know, people that are going to be able to offer that support, right? So that the victims that we work with are heard, right, and listened to and understood. And also, let me just throw in there, be trauma informed, right? So
yes.
that's all important.
Our wish list. Thanks.
Got a wish list, yeah, for sure.
And I think it's important that, you know, when someone says they're bilingual, it, like Annalise said, you know, I can say I'm bilingual, but that doesn't mean that I'm an expert or by any means a good interpreter.
Right.
I know how to get along with my own language, but that's about it. So we have to provide services that are competent, bilingual, and bicultural. And we have to also know that many of our clients might come from indigenous communities that have that Spanish is not their primary language. Actually, Spanish is their secondary language to their indigenous language wherever they come from, whether it be, you know, Mexico, Central America, South America. They have also indigenous people that speak their own language. So it's very important that we are conscious of that, and that bilingual and bicultural advocates and trainers and information and literature and handouts need to be culturally sensitive too. Because I've learned, you know, through many mistakes that some things that I say are okay for some area of the community and it's insulting to others. And so you just have to be very careful. Even if you think that you know the language, you really don't. You know, it's just different variances and dialects that are used, and you have to be, it's just a matter of asking, you know, what's up, you know, and the clients will tell you what's appropriate. You know, you also get them involved in the communication part.
I absolutely agree. And we definitely need to train our law enforcement even more in regards to those particular aspects. So I do absolutely agree. So, and this has kind of been touched on, but I just want to make it clear. So within the community, do a lot of the clients and survivors understand that sexual assault is considered a crime in the United States, regardless of the relationship?
The term sexual assault or the acts, the specific that are done? Because I think there's a difference between that. I mean, I've definitely had that conversation with a couple, not with a couple, with a lot of clients, because my role as an attorney is to prepare a case to present before immigration authorities, not to walk them through the process of healing. So I try to do as little damage as possible. And we try to provide services in a trauma-informed space. But my job is to get them to a point where I can write an affidavit that says exactly what happened. And often I have to get them to say, and he raped me. And that is hard to my clients because they don't consider what happened to them to be a sexual assault or a rape because they're married or
Right.
because he does that every night. So I couldn't possibly be raped every night. So yeah, there's a lot of, and I don't think that's Hispanics culture alone. I think that spreads across all cultures and ethnic groups. But that's something that I definitely see a lot when I'm working with my clients is that they're not ready to necessarily call an act that happened a crime or a rape.
I think, Annalise, so Linda and I both, whenever we are given cases and we're offering an assessment to the victim, a lot of times the intake worker might send a message to me, by the way, Liz, we only just touched on sexual assault because she couldn't go there. They can't say. But when the intake paralegal is going through the questions of violence, right? Did this happen? Did that happen? Oh my God, the light bulb turns on and they're like, wait a minute, what he's doing to me all these 20 years was wrong. Yeah, it was wrong. So then Linda and I might step in and kind of, carefully talk with that victim and so that we can assist perhaps the attorney with that affidavit or whatever.
Yeah,
So
and that's where it's so important for us to team up.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yes.
For the first time they're realizing, wow, all these years my husband has been raping me. I could have said no, I should have said no, but I didn't know I could say no. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I remind my staff all the time, we are not counselors, we are not licensed counselors. That is not our job, and you need to have referrals. Right? Like,
absolutely. That's why I love.
You might even have to pause the case and say, hey, we're really at a sensitive point. I think you need to talk to someone.
Right.
Come back and keep working on that. So that's something we often do too.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. That's why I think social workers are amazing. Like, they are amazing. So we've probably been touching a lot about like immigration and the status, those that are non-US citizens. So what are some of the reasons within the community that are born in the United States and maybe have citizenship are afraid to report the sexual assault to the police? Because with non-US citizens, the threat is I'm report you to ICE and you'll be sent back home. But those within the community that have been born here and have status, what are you seeing their reasons or the barriers for them not to report?
Well, for me, it's shame, right? Guilt if they're reporting their husband, right? The same socioeconomic, that also. So those are the things that come to mind for me and the people that I work with. Also confidence in the police. What's the point? I've made other phone calls and never got a response. Why would I call for this? So there's that as well. Those challenges.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry. I think I agree with Liz, and also that I think that there's a lot of underreporting or non-reporting because, like I said, there's a big mix here of different levels of acculturation, culture, family, community, and also that there's a rape culture. This is just also a disclaimer on the sensitive topic that I don't want to generalize all men, but that level of masculinity that is unhealthy, that they have this mentality that what they want, they'll take regardless of permission or otherwise. And so if it's very strong within that area or that community or that family, and it's overpowering their ability to seek out help or because they may know how to reach out for help. They're just at the moment or at that time feel that they don't have the power to do so. They haven't empowered themselves to do so until they connect, like I said, with either a friend or a family member or someone that is going to provide that empowerment for them to go forward and making a police report or seeking out help in a social service agency or in any of those things that are available out in the community, even at our church or church member.
So then what can we do Well, you know what? Let me hold that question towards the end. Because I'm going to say, what can we do to provide resources? But I want to hold that question towards the end. So my next question is the immigration benefits available for non-citizen survivors of crime. Actually, we're going to hold that one to the end because that's going to tie in together. So Annalie, that is just for you. But we're gonna tie that. I'm gonna put that towards the end because we have a couple more topics to talk about, and then we'll definitely be able to focus on providing the immigration benefits available for non-citizens, for citizens, like things like that. Because I want to be able to let survivors know that there is help out there. I want those that are friends of survivors to what they can do. So we're gonna talk about that for its own topic. My next question is: have y'all seen sexual assault and even, domestic violence on the rise since COVID-19 within the community, regardless if it's immigration, like non-immigrant and, non-citizen and citizen survivors? Have y'all seen a lot come through your office since COVID? And anybody can take this question.
Well, I can say that my work hasn't stopped. So we've been home since March 16th or something like that, 2020. And those intakes come in and those referrals come in. And so they haven't stopped. So I don't know if it's been an increase. I don't know that it's been an increase, but that it's been steady. I'll just say that because my work hasn't stopped.
I agree with Liz. Same thing. That it's continual. It's I think that it's been maybe a little bit more. There's also something to consider is that if the perpetrator is at home, sometimes it's more difficult to reach out for help. So with this COVID and people becoming unemployed or underemployed or working from home, there's been also that that challenge for many of our clients to reach out for help because the perpetrator is at home. Because like the statistics show, and I don't think I mentioned this, but the 2018 statistics of DPS showed that out of the 20,000 victims, 20,592 victims, 16,000 of those victims, the sexual violence or assault happened at home. That's a pretty big percentage that happened at home, whether it happened by their spouse or the significant other or family member or someone they know, or however it happened. But the stats are there that these sexual violence is happening more in the home than other areas, like at a parking lot or grocery store or wherever. So that means that if they're happening more at home and the perpetrator is at home, it makes it so much more difficult to reach out for help.
Randy, I'm anticipating that we're going to see an increase, and probably all of us will after back to school, because that's often where a lot of abuse in the home gets identified. Either a kid says something to a teacher, or it's clear that the child, him or herself, has also been abused. So I'm bracing for that in the next month or so.
I agree, because if they are, as of right now, they're going back to school, versus virtually. So I agree with you. I think we're going to see a lot of increase of cases coming in. So COVID was not the best thing. I was fearful because having abusers and victims in the home together was not a great thing at all. Yeah, that was definitely not a great thing. But I want to piggyback too, and like I said, we're still going to talk more into this, but if you're, if a victim is in their home with abuser and they feel like they don't need help, find out the abuser's schedule. They may at some point go to the restroom or go outside, or they may be able to work. They may not be working from home. A lot of companies have allowed people to go into work. Find that little time to where hop on your phone real quick. If you have an iPhone, I know you can make your search private. So if you can make your search private and search for the domestic violence and sexual assault survivor hotlines. Also reach out to any of our services and we'll provide that as well. Just do a quick search, but like I said, I have an iPhone. I know on the iPhones, you can make your search private on the website. When you're searching the web, you can make it private, because if somebody goes back, they won't be able to trace what you're looking at if you're on your phone, because at times on the computer, you can't make your search private. But if you are on the computer and you have that quick downtime and you're looking for services, if you do that, then immediately once you get the service, try to write it on pen and paper real quick or email it to a friend or somebody else, and then clear your search history. And you can do that by thinking, depending on which search you're using, Safari, Google Map, Google, or Chrome or Internet Explorer, you can clear your search history. So if your abuser goes back and see, they won't be able to find it. So there's just quick little tips that I want to throw in there, because we are in COVID. Some people are still quarantining, some people are still stuck at home, but I don't want them to feel so helpless that there's not a way for them to try to reach out and get some type of help. But those are just like quick little tips you can do to get searches. And then when you have time, call real quick. And then immediately when you call for services, then immediately, delete your history. So those are just really quick, but we're going to go back into more providing resources. So how does immigration status and our attitudes toward immigrants affect the services of the community? We kind of touched on it, because we were saying like law enforcement, Liz, in your scenario, they hung up in the young lady's face because it was a language barrier. So are there any other type of services like in regards to like attitudes and, that affects the community? Or, yeah.
I think the climate we're in right now, right? Not everyone, but the anti-immigrant climate we're in, that whole feeling, right? That law enforcement you might be a little more paranoid about law enforcement. Are they supportive of immigrants? Are they supportive of me if I'm a victim? So I think certainly that's a concern for our survivors that are not documented.
We've also had an issue, and we'll talk about, I'm guessing about the U visa more, but when we have had clients report and then request a U visa certification from law enforcement, sometimes that makes law enforcement suspect that the report was not a valid report, that it was only done for an immigration purpose, which is not true, and we wouldn't work with clients under situations like that. But I've noticed that sometimes law enforcement seem to be more hesitant to investigate those cases or think there's ulterior motives.
I have an example also of a client that reported. She was a non-citizen. She reported, and she specifically told the law enforcement officer as she was making the report about her phone number. And she said, I'm not going to have this phone number for long, because I know he will disconnect it, because he was the one paying for the phone. And when, of course, time happened, she no longer had the same phone or the phone number. She had called and to notify about her change of phone number, but yet on the police report, it indicated that she was non-cooperative because there was no communication. But she had communicated this information. It was the system that failed her in this perspective,
Well, let's talk about U visa and VAWA.
Yeah.
So let's explain what U visa is, and then let's go to VAWA. So what is a U visa, and what is the process for a U visa?
Sure. So a U visa is an immigration benefit for immigrant survivors of crime committed in the US. So that is one of the requirements, is that the crime happens here in the United States. So the U visa provides lawful status for 4 years in the US, and then the ability to apply for permanent residence. So it's a pathway to citizenship, basically. one of the requirements, though, is that you receive a certification from law enforcement or a prosecutor or a judge saying that the person's been a victim of a crime, they've been helpful in the investigation, and that they actually, or that the crime is qualifying and that they suffered some type of harm from that. Without that certification, you cannot apply for a U visa. Unfortunately, every jurisdiction, every entity has their ability to decide whether or not they want to certify cases and under what circumstances they'll certify. So it really can matter where crime was committed against you, whether or not you'll be able to get a U visa. And that's a continued issue across the state, getting certifications. The other major issue with the U visa is that Congress has placed a 10,000 annual cap on the U visa. So there's a long waiting list, years and years to get an actual U visa. What immigration authorities have done is created something called deferred action, which is a protection from deportation and a work permit. It's basically like DACA. It's not an actual immigration status, but it's saying, hey, while you're in this situation, we won't deport you, we'll give you a work permit. So historically, it's taken about 4 to 5 years recently for immigration to even get to the point of giving you that work permit and saying you're on the wait list. So 4 to 5 years to even get to the wait list. And then you're waiting for a U visa for another possibly 4 years. Thankfully, it was March or April, I think, Biden administration issued a memo saying that they're going to be giving work permits much faster to people on the wait list. So that's really great news for U visa applicants. We're still waiting for them to process the long backlog of cases that have been sitting there, but I've seen U visa or work permits now for 2015 and 2016 cases that were filed. We're still waiting for 2017 and to get to the present. But that's the U visa. Again, the crime has to be qualifying. So it's any crime, they're typically violent crimes. So for example, robbery is not a qualifying crime. But if it's aggravated robbery, so there's a weapon of some kind or there's severe injury that happens, then it's possible it could be a qualifying crime. Domestic violence is a qualifying crime. Also, yeah, those are the two primary that I see. Aggravated assault is another common one. So VAWA is the Violence Against Women Act, but the VAWA immigration benefit is primarily for spouses, but it can be for children and parents as well, of US citizens or permanent residents who are abusive. So that might get confusing. So basically, if you have a US citizen or permanent resident who's abusive, their spouse can now apply for immigration status without having to stay in that relationship. They could decide to divorce, they could decide to remain in the relationship, but they don't have to rely on that abuser to have their pathway to permanent residency. They can take that person out of the equation. That person doesn't even have to know they're applying for this immigration benefit. Again, though, the issue is you have to be married or have a parent or child who is a US citizen or permanent resident that's abusing you. So for a lot of our clients, that's not going to be their situation. But the reason this benefit came about is, as we all talked about, immigration status can be a tool of manipulation and coercion for abusers. And so VAWA is a way to help both men and women. I have VAWA clients who are men, have had transgender VAWA clients as well. So to have more options. Do they want to stay in their relationship? Do they want to divorce? That's an option too, and have some sort of safety. So if there's a divorce, the person needs to apply within 2 years after the divorce for a VAWA. But again, a lot of people think that their chances are over if they did not divorce, or if they have divorced, if they're still within the 2-year window, that's possible. Another thing that I see a lot of is common law marriage or informal marriage in the state of Texas. So if your partner has never been is not legally married to someone else, and you all hold each other out as husband and wife to others, then you're married in the state of Texas, and you can apply for VAWA as a married woman or man to your partner. The issue, though, with informal marriage in the state of Texas is if you separate, you have to get divorced within 1 year of marriage, or else it was considered that that marriage never existed. So even if you're in an informal marriage, you might have options, but you need to go talk to an attorney sooner rather than later, because it might involve having to file for divorce. So yeah, those are some options. The third thing I want to mention that often gets overlooked is the T visa, which is for survivors. And I have had a couple trafficking cases. Sorry, the trash truck is driving by right now. I've had a couple trafficking cases that first appear as intimate partner violence or domestic violence, but are in fact trafficking as well. So a number of years ago, I filed a case for a woman who was a Salvadorian citizen relocated to Mexico, who was working in a restaurant there. A man decided she was going to be his woman. He brought her to the US where by force, doesn't have to be by force, but it was in this situation. And then she was kept in his house, cooked and cleaned for him as his spouse. She won a T visa as a trafficking survivor because she was brought to the US under force, fraud, or coercion, and she provided some sort of labor, which was free cooking and cleaning for this man. So she was viewed as a trafficking survivor and was able to get that kind of support. We also see some more traditional human trafficking cases as well, where someone's working for another individual, but often there's intimate partner violence in a lot of the trafficking cases that I see, sometimes working in their business for no pay, which no pay alone doesn't mean trafficking, but if you're working in that business because you think you have no other alternatives, that this person will beat you or hurt you in some way if you don't continue doing what they ask. And that's probably coercion and might very likely be human trafficking. So there are several options to look into. Definitely worth talking with advocates and attorneys about those options.
Thank you for that information. That was definitely needed. And like about U visa, VAWA, T visa, because we do see that oftentimes in the work that we do. So now we're actually going to bring this to a close. But before we do, let's talk about the immigration benefits for non-citizens, and then benefits for citizens, and basically just resources that can be provided for those that are in need of our services. And so, Annalie, I know you wanted to start with the immigration for benefits for non-citizens. Am I saying that are available for non-citizens? Can you provide that information?
Yeah, I just meant the U visa, VAWA, and T visa is what. So I'm done.
Okay, well, thank you. Those are the immigration benefits for non-citizens. Absolutely. U visa, VAWA, and T visa. But so for those that are listening, and that are seeking help, but that don't know how, or for those that have friends that are in situations and they want to help, what can they do? Like, what resources who can they contact, and how can they reach out? And so anybody can start with there.
So whenever I send resources or talk to people about resources, one of the places that I always refer to is the RAIN, Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 24/7 hotline. They've got the resource information that can connect you to local resources, your local shelter or counseling area. So Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, RAIN, that's the website and the hotline that I'll refer to all the time to my clients and victim survivors that I work with. Linda, do you have others?
Yeah, I agree. I use RAIN a lot. I try to provide a list to the clients of different hotline numbers, and RAIN is one of them, but the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I even include the suicide hotline. I include the local shelters, how to get our hotline numbers or call line numbers for us for the LASSA program and for the general legal aid program. Anything and everything. It's almost like a bucket full of just information. But because I always say this, is that I don't know when is it that the client will be in tune and listening. So it's a fluid type of information that's ongoing, that I provide it once, twice, and more than that, because you just don't know when they'll need it, or or they're ready to make a report or call up or make contact. So having that access to that information should be done more than once, because I find it, and through doing this work, is that some clients at the moment of their trauma or just reaching out for the first time, they're not listening all the time because they've been so traumatized. And so once they're prepared to do a little bit more, then this is our job as social workers and LPCs, is to continue that fluid communication of how to connect with other services. And I find that sometimes they'll say, oh, I don't know where I left that piece of paper. Oh, I didn't write it down. Oh, I didn't put it in my phone. And it's just like, no apologies needed. It's just, this is not a judgment a call here or anything like that. It's just for me to provide you the information that you're needing. And when you're ready, or you can just call me and I'll be able to provide it again and again and again.
So then if they're in the Rio Grande area, what areas do y'all cover? Is it all the Rio Grande? Because I know, Liz, can you provide, well, Liz or Linda, provide the contact information and the service area that y'all cover?
So I am part of LASSA Southwest. So I cover Austin area all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley, and I can go to Del Rio and El Paso. A lot of the people that I work with. Now, Linda and I are 2 of 6, Linda, social workers. So we are 6 social workers total in Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. But I cover, like I said, Austin, and Linda covers the same areas, the very same areas. Yes.
68 counties.
Yeah.
And then Annalie, where can they reach you or American Gateways, and what areas do you cover if somebody's in need of assistance?
Yeah, so I direct you to our website, americangateways.org, or our Facebook page. So I run our Waco office, but we also have an office in Austin, in San Antonio. So we serve the 27 counties kind of around those 3 cities, mainly folks that are under the jurisdiction of the San Antonio Immigration Court. So basically Waco and South.
And Lone Star Legal Aid, we cover 72 counties. We are housed, our main hub is Houston area, but we cover 72 counties, I think, like also as South and Southeast. So if you know somebody who is in a domestic violence or sexual assault environment, do not approach them in a negative tone. Have compassion, listen, because they are not looking for judgment. There at times when they do reveal the situation, they're just looking for a friend. So do not judge, do not provide any negativity, and just listen and ask them, what type of support that you can provide for them. If you feel like if it's an extreme situation, then please give one of our agencies a call, and we'll be able to reach out and help. If you are in a domestic violence and sexual assault victim, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, call one of our agencies. If it's severe, call 911 first. No matter what, always call 911 first, because somebody will come to your assistance. So please do not suffer in silence. Please do not feel like you're alone. There are resources out there that will be able to help. So that is all I have, ladies. Thank you again for being a part of our 12th episode. I think this was a very great conversation. I have personally learned a lot that's going to help me in regards to assisting my clients. So again, I think social workers are awesome. And thank you again for being on this show. So do y'all have any questions, comments, or concerns before we close out?
Thank you,
Thank you
Brandy.
for having us. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for having us and thank you for a great conversation. And you made it very easy, Brandy, to talk to. Yes, so thank you,
so much. I
everybody.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Well, that's it. We're out.
Bye.